Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're talking about the idea of vaccine passports. And Mr. Richards, I want to follow up on that question with you about privacy. I mean, who is going to be developing this technology? I've read different reports of private sector businesses that could be developing this. And we hear all the time about hacks of information. And what are the risks to privacy you see here with that approach?
Right. So regarding data privacy on the government front, we have to ask how will our information be safeguarded? Who will have access to it at the provincial and federal level, and even internationally? How will it be shared with different countries? Will the information that's collected suffer from that sort of mission creep that we saw in the post 9/11 era with national security databases? And then perhaps the bigger concern is when it comes to the private sector. Some of these passports that are being developed by, I think the last ones I saw were Microsoft and Salesforce are developing their own. So privacy legislation imposes fairly strict standards on how health information is handled and who can handle it. So for example, Ticketmaster or MLSE or Loblaws up to that challenge? Do they want to be? If they're checking our health information to get access to a sporting event or a concert, or even just to do our grocery shopping. And what about mom and pop shops where they don't have those same resources to dedicate to privacy safeguards?
Really a complicated question. So, Mr. Bowman, I want to ask you, what are some reasonable alternatives to this? We all want to return to normal. How do we get there without a policy like this?
The short answer is I'm not sure. But one thing I'm watching very carefully, and I do not have a clear picture, and I've spoken to a lot of intelligent people, and they don't either. What's the timeline here? So I'm speaking now of Canadian society. The vaccines are rolling in. Are we going to be able to well and truly distribute them quickly? What's the window where even the consideration of a vaccine passport would have to be reviewed? I don't know. Are we talking 6 weeks, 6 months? We don't know. The other is it could be a colossal waste going to happen. Besides that, they're going to, organize all of this. So I don't know what the alternative would be. The counter to the argument, Christine, is if in fact people, and we don't know this yet from a scientific point of view, but assuming people are not infectious, and again, I repeat, we don't know that, assuming people are non-infectious, the other side of the argument is it really fair to limit the rights and freedoms of individuals that have followed these rules for a year plus, when in fact they're of no danger to anyone else? That's the counter argument that you see. I mean, I think the alternative is we do a really good job with vaccines and the whole society moves forward together. I think that's what our goal needs to be.
And Mr. Richards, what do you view as an alternative to this policy?
Well, I think an underappreciated aspect of the passport debate is that we are rapidly approaching the tail end of the pandemic. You have seasonality, the vaccine rollouts are continuing, increasing herd immunity. It raises the question of, if private companies and government are spending millions of dollars to develop and maintain these vaccination passports, will they be willing to do that for 6 weeks, 8 weeks? Or is it going to be one of those things where it's like going to the airport now, where 20 years later, we're still taking our shoes off?
Yeah.
That's security. So given where given where we're at with the pandemic right now, it's almost becoming a moot point.
Absolutely. Well, it's an interesting policy question, and I want to thank you both for joining me.